It's time to talk Gonzaga basketball.
Get ready.
It's the Spokesman-Review Zags Insiders Podcast.
Here we go.
Here's Jim Meehan and Richard Fox.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back to the Zags Basketball Insiders Podcast. Jim Meehan from the Spokesman-Review, Richard Fox from TV Land. He is the analyst for Gonzaga Basketball, KHQ, SWX, and Root. And back after a tough one-game week that did not go Gonzaga's way, especially in that last minute against Santa Clara. We got a lot coming up on that. But first, let's kind of take an overview of where the Zags stand in the national picture here. The AP poll has not come out. The Zags streak of 143 in a row, tied for 10th all time, is probably going to go by the wayside. They were 23rd coming into the week, and a loss to unranked Santa Clara will likely put an end to that remarkable streak. Last time they weren't ranked, March 14th, 2016. That's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. In the net, the Zags are 50th, which is, as we've talked about, right on Bubbleville right there. And then in the brackets, the Zags, they were an 11th, last four in with Lunardi. Jerry Palm started off his latest bracketology by saying, first time in as long as he can remember, no Gonzaga in his bracket. The bracket matrix has the Zags on the 11 line, which usually puts you in that first four situation or close to it. So that's where they stand going into this last 5-6 week stretch. Got a lot of work to do to kind of shore up some at-large bursts or even the automatic qualifier. It could come down to that. Foxy, right here, right now, are the Zags in the tournament? And what do they have to do to stay there? They've got 16 games, let's presume, if they have two in the tournament. What do you think?
I mean, it's just remarkable to just have to talk about it for the first time since March of 2016, I guess, right? Just not really just not used to having to contemplate whether or not Gonzaga is going to be in the tournament. So I think for everybody, certainly that follows the Zags, it's a bit just startling to think about that possibility. They don't have any real room for error, particularly in the conference, because despite the fact that Santa Clara, we talked about it last week, is a good team and presented some matchup problems and size. I'm not sure they're a lock to be in the tournament or a tournament team. St. Mary's has been good lately. Obviously, a tough start to the year. I think they may have the only quad one win in the league against Colorado State, if I'm remembering that correctly. But you don't get a lot of credit for beating Pepperdine and San Diego, Pacific, LMU, and these are games you have to have. And so there's just a real pressure that I think builds as you move through conference play, understanding how important all these games are. And you're an imperfect team. Every team has some imperfections, but this team's their imperfections are glaring and obvious. So I think it's going to be difficult. The one thing they have is obviously that opportunity against Kentucky. We'll have to spend some time thinking about the last time there was a non-conference game as important as that one for this program. You win down in Kentucky, I think all the wrongs are righted and you're probably in, because that's a really good team in Kentucky. But there's just not a lot of opportunities in the conference to win a game that's going to, at least mathematically in the net and so on and so forth, going to really change your reality as of today. So certainly if they go undefeated the rest of the way and lose in the championship game in the WCC tournament, I think we probably all feel like they're in as a lower seed.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure either one of us think that that's a high probability. I think we both think there's probably another stumbling block or two in conference play waiting for them.
Well, the way they're playing, that's the issue, is they could stumble as they did the other night against a good team, but nationally the perception is that that's a bad loss. And if you stumble to any of those bottom six teams in the conference, bottom five. That has almost more damage to your resume than beating St. Mary's or beating USF. It's the trade-off. If you're losing to a team in the 200s in the net, it really damages what you're trying to do. But we'll see. A lot of work to do. I do think if they got on a big roll and one out, I think they could climb up pretty decently on the seed line. We kind of wrote about this Sunday in an article we did, me and Theo Lawson, that Spokane's probably out of the question, almost certainly out of the question at this point, obviously. But let's say they win 16 in a row. Let's say they win at Kentucky. Let's say St. Mary's qualifies as a quad one both times. Maybe they beat them in the tournament. You're looking at like a 6-4 quad one record. That's the same as last year when they were when they were a 3 seed. Every domino's got to fall for that to happen. But the point is the sky isn't falling, but it's that picture is a little cloudy out there right now, and much work to be done. Let's move forward with the Santa Clara game. We'll go through that piece by piece. As painful as it is, Foxy, that was a game. Really, the way the Zags opened that game, got behind, got dominated on the glass.
Yeah,
really dominated, not just by 3 or 4 boards. They were down, I think, by 15 or 16 at one time on the glass. Then kind of fixed that problem, got things going, got Anton Watson a little help in the form of Ryan Nemhard and Braden Huff, took the lead in the final minute. And then, when I watched the replay, a couple of defensive breakdowns at the end. Adama Alpha Ball hits a game-winning bank shot. Zags don't get a shot off at the end. They kind of did everything they needed to win in a hostile environment, and in that last minute, did not make one play that would have led to a win. Just one would have probably led to a win in that situation.
Yeah, it's you got 3 guys who played 40 minutes in that game, and I thought at least Nemhard, all 3 were involved down the stretch. You saw Nemhard miss the front end of 1-on-1. Hickman got beat off the drive. Kind of bailed on the stop, trying not to foul, but just ended up scooting underneath the ball. And then obviously, Anton was trying to get a prayer up, but cramps up and can't do anything with it. Both those guys, all 3 of those guys, rather play 40 minutes. I think that's worth discussing some in more detail. But Santa Clara, we talked about it last week, one of the best offensive teams in the league, but shot under their percentages, only 32% from 3, have been coming in shooting over 37. So I thought defensively Gonzaga competed, not maybe, but just had those breakdowns. And interestingly enough, I think a lot of those, I've been a proponent of the big lineup. I do think the positives outweigh the negatives, but at times it feels like they get mismatched and confused in transition defensively. They're not communicating enough as they get back, and it led to 2 or 3 easy shots at the rim, or you're already in rotation, guys have to help up, you don't know who's guarding the guy on the baseline, dunk. Yeah. Transition, dunk, easy shot from 3, and so that's the one negative that I've seen with that big lineup, and I thought it really showed against Santa Clara in some critical points, particularly in that second half. But I did think they did a good job on balance, I think, getting out and contesting those threes. And the threes that Santa Clara hit, for the most part, were just from breakdowns. Obviously, you saw Stromer just get, ripped a new one after getting lost, ball watching, and, effectively benched until really late in the game when I think they wanted another perimeter guy. Gonzaga shot the ball well around the rim, 63%, but 2 of 20. The weekend before they shot 34%. It's just remarkable to see that kind of drop off. That's not something you see. You don't see a team swing that dramatically from one way, from one end to the other with respect to shooting percentages. And you shoot 2 of 20 and you don't rebound the ball, particularly in the first half, and you have a chance to win that game. That's remarkable.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do think it speaks to this group's competitiveness and togetherness. That's the one thing that's been consistent all year is, this is a close group. And I think, bad teams and bad chemistry result in that being a blowout. And they still found a way. Ike gets in a ton of foul trouble, really a zero factor. Hickman, 40 minutes, 1 of 9. I heard Mark say that after the game, just some of these guys just were just non-existent. And when you've got the depth problems you have, you can't play 40 minutes if you're Hickman and be effectively a zero. They need something from you, even if the shot's not there. It was also interesting. I mean, Santa Clara 18 turnovers, but Gonzaga only 12 points off those turnovers. Gonzaga, I think, turned it over 10 times. We're +1 in points off turnovers.
Yeah.
Just, that's not something you normally see. Gonzaga just unable to take advantage. And obviously Santa Clara was okay on the glass coming into the night, but just +13 was +7 on the offensive glass. I think Gonzaga shored that up in the second half, but at that point, a lot of that damage had been done. So it's just a really interesting game. I thought it was sloppy. It never felt like there was a great flow to it. Maybe short stretches for both clubs. Watson was obviously tremendous, and Nemhard. Look, his 3-point shooting is the first thing you notice, but the reality is he finds ways to be effective. I mean, 5 assists, 0 turnovers, 8 of 13 inside the arc. Created a lot of easier opportunities for his bigs. I was impressed with his floor game. The kid just can't shoot, and that's difficult. Over the course of 40 minutes, that's just going to hurt you. But all in all, I thought those 3 guys, Huff, Watson, and Nemhard, came to play. It's just the rest of that group just was not there that night. And somehow, some way, you had a chance to win that game late. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, Mark Few's assessment of Anton was unbelievable. The not much from a lot of other guys. That was dead on. But Ryan Nemhard in that second half was really good.
Yeah.
Until he would have been the hero of it, along with Anton and Braden, if he hits the free throws. He's an 84% free thrower. The irony there is the kid who wins the game for Santa Clara, Ball, I think he's even higher. He might have been 88%. He misses 2 of 3 in the last 15 seconds. But he hit the bank shot, high bank shot. I watched that replay 5,000 times. Anton nearly got that thing.
He was so, yeah.
And if Ball doesn't put it very high on the glass, then I think it bounces on the rim softly about 3 times before it went in. So a lot of things had to happen, but let's talk about Anton Watson. That was the UCLA revisited performance by Anton. Absolutely took the game over, just as he did against UCLA. He was a one-man show pretty much the entire first half. I think Nemhard might have had 6 at the break and then 15 in the second, but the array of scoring moves, out in transition, jump hooks. I think Ike missed 2 or 3 times, and when Anton wasn't the option on the play, he just went and got it and put it in the hole. And he did that at the end of the game. His last bucket, somewhere maybe 2.5 minutes left, I think it put him ahead 74-72. If you watch that, he's in the corner. He is out of gas.
Yes, he's out of gas.
Hands are on the shorts. He is trying to take a blow to get through the end of the finish line. And he came racing in after the ball had been shot, beat everybody to the ball and put it back in. It's like the kid has the motor even when he's gassed. But we've seen this one other time in against UCLA, 32 points, hardly missed a shot. I think he missed maybe a couple of threes, and one of them did the in and out. He got to the line. The kid was magnificent, and it's kind of a shame. If he had gotten any support in the first half, they probably wouldn't have had to gone through what they did at the end of the game. What'd you make of Anton's performance?
Well, Watson, against UCLA, 32 points. He was 4 of 15, so he just missed 1. So,
14.
So huge drop off here against Santa Clara. He missed 4 shots. He's really got to get more efficient. If there was ever any question, which I can't imagine there was, but if there was about Anton's competitiveness, I imagine he put that to bed on last week. I mean, you're absolutely right. If he doesn't do what he did in the first half, it's over. I mean, that's a 20-point game, I think.
Yeah.
And it's just, he's going to be a really interesting guy to try to place over the course, in the history of this program, because this is the first year where he's, I think, been liberated a little bit to be the guy. He's got a more responsibility, more expected of him. He's always just been good about fitting into what they needed. They've obviously had some incredible talents along that front line, Holmgren and Timmy stand out. So he's always had to wait his turn, and you see him this year. He's got the ability. I mean, it wasn't as if he was hitting just open jump shots and offensive rebounds. I mean, he went to work off the drive, low block. He had a couple great post moves, and just carried them in a real way. I mean, you were wondering who's going to help him. And in the second half, I thought Nembhard was really good, and obviously Huff got going. Really the best game I think Huff's had all year when you consider the circumstance, the pressure, the importance of the game. It was good to see him finally kind of maybe have a breakout moment. It'll be interesting to see if he can carry that over moving forward. Yeah. But Anton's just has had an interesting career. His steal numbers are tremendous. He's going to put up great numbers this year. I suspect this year the coaches won't omit him from the all-conference honors the way they did last year. Yeah. But just really impressed with his effort. It's about as big time and effort as you're going to see at the college level. And, if you follow Gonzaga, the circumstance going into the game with respect to having to win that game and understanding Santa Clara is a good team. And without him, you're getting blown out. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And he kept him in it long enough to finally Nembhard got going, Huff got going to help him out a little bit. But, that the fatigue thing is real. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think they've got a solution. It's not as if there's an obvious thing that they could be doing that you say, I just don't understand why isn't View playing this kid, or why aren't they doing ABC? Yeah. They just have to rely on him and Nembhard in particular so much that I think we saw just by the end of the game that neither one of those kids had any legs.
No, and it factors in. I mean, I think Anton had a couple of turnovers in the final minutes. 99% probably pure exhaustion. Yeah. Nothing else. It wasn't defense. It's playing 40 minutes, and I'm talking 40 hard minutes.
Hard, yeah, exactly.
These are not 40, I get a rest on the defensive end type of deal. And when you're carrying it, when you're posting, when you're doing all those things to score, it's so taxing on him and on all those guys. I will say Huff did get going really well in the second half. Yeah. And if you look back at that, Nembhard got him going. I think there was 2 back-to-back spoon-fed layups, and obviously IQ from Braden to get to the rim. But that's what Nembhard can do. And I think he did hit a 3 finally in the second. You're right. Yeah. And I think Braden hit the other 3. And I think you just have to believe in the long run, he's a mid-30s, 33, 35% shooter in his career, I think, from 3. You have to believe that's where he'll be in the neighborhood at the end of the year. I don't think it's necessarily broken. I think it's probably confidence at this point. And who knows if he gets that going, the other parts are very much in line with getting teammates involved. His mid-range was really good the other day. Let's do one more on Santa Clara. We'll get to them getting absolutely undressed by St. Mary's 2 days later.
Unbelievable.
But there is, and we talked about this, this is not an easy team to deal with. They do have the big bodies inside. They brought a kid off the bench, Ensminger, that I think he had 5 offensive boards in 6 minutes. Yep. They've got size. Obviously, the 2 that make them go are Ball and Carlos Marshall. Marshall was sick the other night and looked like it. He just did not play very well at all, but he's a pretty effective guy. They're both in that 6'6", 6'7" range and long. The guy that really hurt the Zags a little more under the radar was the point guard Napper that I think he hit 4 threes. He had a career high,
Mm-hmm.
16 points. Here's a guy that came in shooting 33% from three and nails 4 threes, kind of big threes too in the first half when they opened up the lead. So that's not the last good team Santa Clara is going to beat. I think they spent so much invested into Thursday that Saturday turned into a nightmare for them against the Gales. But this is going to be an issue for teams. San Francisco defending those guys will be very interesting. That is going to be the matchups there are intriguing. And then when they come up north to the McCarthy here, what do the Zags do with Ball and Marshall? They really weren't all that bad against them defensively for the most part. But Ball really got it going and took over at the end of the game. Where do you see the Broncos at the end of the year in this picture? Because they're going to be tough to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really disappointing. They're obviously they're outing on Saturday night. I think you're right. You put so much into the game against Gonzaga. You couple that with it's the Nash retirement thing, and there's just a lot. There's so much buzz. There's always a bit of a hangover, whether it be figuratively or maybe even literally, depending on the group you have. So this Saturday they just didn't have it, but that's a tough one for Santa Clara, and I think for GU, you all of a sudden start rooting for the teams that beat you, and you're kind of hoping Santa Clara gets it going, and all of a sudden maybe the game with Spokane means a lot for seeding and otherwise. But I do think those three, Santa Clara, St. Mary's, and San Francisco, are all about this equal, and I don't think the loss Santa Clara had is indicative. I think they can play St. Mary's not this weekend but the next weekend. So they'll have an opportunity to maybe give them a better test. But I like Santa Clara. You're right. I mean, their size. Sendik's typically had big guards. They could all play. Marshall wasn't himself, but Ball's different than Pajemski and Williams, but has a lot of the same size. He's not quite, I think, the physical. He's not as good an athlete, maybe, but he's got a green light. He can go. He can knock down the 3-point shot. I was really impressed with O'Neal and Tilly, their starting bigs. I mean, that's true size. Tilly's a big kid, and he can play. It's not just a lumbering guy out there who's throwing his weight around. And they can both score it enough, and they just have size off their bench. I mean, they've got real depth. I mean, they played 5 guys off their bench played. Yeah. And had Tongue, or I think that's Cameron Tongue. He was the one guy who didn't have an impact in 4 minutes. Yeah. But they're able to bring guys in even for short bursts that come in, play with purpose, with energy, and give them a lift. Yeah. It's just the Ball played 34 and a half minutes. He's tops on their team. Gonzaga had 3 guys that had to play 40. It's just the reality that is Gonzaga right now is.
And who was making plays at the end? Ball, yeah. And the minutes issue is not going to go away in close games. No, the Zags are going to lean on those guys. But let's go to this coming week. Zags back on the road. Pepperdine first up, and then San Diego on Saturday. Pepperdine 2-0 week last week. Knocked up a couple teams that are probably projected in the bottom 3 or 4 along with Pepperdine. Javon Porter, who we saw here last 2 weeks ago, I guess, at the arena, just coming back from a knee injury. He played very well against Pacific. He had 26 points. I think he had 3 threes. Did not do much in the win over San Diego, 7 points. But they have 3 real strong players. Porter's 6'10-ish, long. Houston Millett, the guard, he hit 5 threes, I think, both games last week in those 2 wins. And then Michael Ajayi is 6'7", a rebounding machine. I think he had 21 and 7, 24 and 12 in those 2 wins. And again, the issue with them is, can they stop Gonzaga? But on their home floor with a couple of wins, they're probably going to have a little more confidence coming into that game than they did 2 weeks ago at the arena.
Yeah, look, all three of those guys, Porter, Mellette, and then Jai, are all league caliber players. Jai was almost certainly going to be an all-conference player. So they've got top-end talent, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. It's just I mean, they've lost 40 some odd times straight to Gonzaga. At some point that's going to end. But they've just historically not been able to play with Gonzaga's size and just defend them over 40 minutes. And it feels like Pepperdine is always young and finds a way late in games that have been close to just kind of shoot themselves in the foot. We saw them up here. I thought the shot quality was poor, to be kind. Porter in particular the first half was just kind of gunning, as if trying to make up for the shots he missed to start the year because he was injured. But if they can play a more controlled tempo, take better shots, and I don't think they can guard Gonzaga inside, but if they can compete with Gonzaga rebounding the ball, they certainly should feel like they can give Gonzaga a game on their home floor. Yeah. They just have that top end talent. And then San Diego, they are really young. I mean, they play a lot of young kids, and I like the fact that they try to change things up defensively on you during the course of the game. That really works if you've got a veteran group, but when you've got a young group, I think it leads to a lot of mistakes and easy buckets. We saw, Gonzaga, I think, to start the game up here in Spokane, the first 2 or 3 possessions were wide open looks. I know that McKinley's back after being hurt up here, but I'm not sure he moves the needle enough. And that's always the Slim Jim where USD plays. 10 years ago, they might sell that game out. I'm not sure they do that anymore. So I'm not sure it's going to be this hostile environment. But Pepperdine, they'll fill that thing up. Their students will be there. It'll get rowdy. It's effectively a mid-sized high school gym. Yeah. It'll be a fun atmosphere. So I expect Gonzaga is going to handle their business, but the question I had certainly going into the conference play, Jim, was where's this team at emotionally? And they answered that unequivocally to open the conference play. They're fine. But now, that's just always a question. You shoot 2 of 20, you lose on the road. What's their mindset going to be come this weekend? I'll be interested to see how the start of that Pepperdine game goes. Is this team engaged and moving on from that loss, or is that loss lingering a little bit?
Yeah, they're 0-2, and the only true road games they've played so far. San Diego, Pepperdine beat San Diego and really kind of took it away at the end. I think they trailed a lot of that game, had a big run at the end to win that game. So McKinney was back. Deuce Turner did not play against Pepperdine, their top scoring kid. Injury, did not say what the injury was in the report I saw, but a week of time to see if he'll be back. Those two together would certainly make San Diego's backcourt a pretty formidable challenge, at least on Saturday. But we'll move on. We got one more general topic before we wrap it up. Foxy, congratulations. You've been named the new head coach at Gonzaga. And according to my Twitter feed, they need to make a change from some of the keyboard warriors out there. After a loss, the sky falls every time Gonzaga loses. But we're naming you the head coach. You don't have any assistants. You can make all these calls by yourself. Wow. So what's one or two things that you do immediately with this current roster and what they're facing?
Are you already writing the article for the next day, the end of Gonzaga's program?
Yeah, we'll read all about this tomorrow.
Well, I'll be honest with you. You posed this question to me, and I immediately thought to myself, well, I'm a guy who has lots of opinions. I could come up with something. And then the more I thought about it, I thought there just isn't a lot that can be done.
They're roster limited, aren't they?
Yeah. But if I did make some, suggest anything without any skin in the game or consequences to my decisions. I've been saying this for a while. I would start Ben Gregg. I know he was not good against Santa Clara. 25 minutes, didn't score. Had 5 rebounds and a couple steals, but was bad. I mean, he just he got chewed out once. Gave up an offensive rebound, I think, on a free throw. But Ben has been there most nights, and leading up to the Santa Clara game had been really good. And we'd seen him start coming off the bench first, and then he's just been in these big games. And so I think I'd go big to start games. That doesn't require him to play 30 minutes a game. Quite frankly, you can keep his minutes about flat. Yeah. And that I just like the idea of Stromer coming off the bench for either Ben and quite frankly, he could come in for whoever needs to come out of the game. It can be EK or Watson, but more importantly, I think it allows you to maybe bring him in for Hickman or Nembhard, and stay big, but keep a couple ball handlers on the floor. Stromer is obviously a talented kid, but it feels like maybe the assignment's a little bit bigger than he's ready for. He's not played at a high. He just hasn't played all that well on balance for the year. He's had moments like any freshman does, but they're asking so much of him, and he only played 18 minutes against I think it was against Santa Clara.
Yeah,
I just think it helps your rotation feel a little bit more balanced versus playing the only 3 perimeter players you want to play right now to start the game. So I think that would be the first thing. It's not a huge change. I'm not sure it dramatically changes your reality, but I like the way what it does to your rotation. And then I would play June. And the argument is, well, he makes mistakes and he can't shoot. Well, you can't shoot as a team. You just shot 2 of 20, so I'm not sure he's going to drive your percentage down all that much anyway. What I like about June is I think he plays really hard. He's got high level size. I mean, he's all of 6'8". He's a good athlete. His mistakes are mistakes of effort. I'm not arguing he needs to play 20 minutes a night. But if he can give you 8 to 10 or 12, depending on the night, I mean, you can even tell the kid, don't shoot. You're here to move without the ball, set screens, move. Go get the offensive rebound. You can place restrictions on a player or try to impose those without destroying their confidence.
Sure.
And just say, look, you're scoring in transition, you're driving, you're cutting, but what we need you to do is come in here and not hurt us. And what you're doing is you're allowing us to get guys some rest. It's in my mind, it's 4 minutes for Nembhard and Watson. Can you get them to play 36 minutes in a game like Santa Clara versus having to play the 40?
Yeah. And
then what do they look like? Because coaches are crafty. If I pull you at the 12:20 mark or 12:30 mark, then we have a media timeout, and then I wait to the first dead ball to get you in. I might actually get you 5 to 7 minutes of time for you to be off your legs, to hydrate, all that good stuff. So game time, it might be 45 seconds, but the reality is from just a standard time, it's 5 to 7 minutes. So I just would try to find a way, moments in a game. And I typically staffs want to have it scheduled a little bit. As a player, you want to know, I generally come in at the 10 or 12 minute mark. I could be prepared for that. I know what to expect. And that's hard with Nembhard and Watson because they're so important to what you're doing. But you've got to find minutes for them just to get off their legs. But I readily admit, Jim, I'm not sure any of those awesome ideas are ones that would change their reality. I think you're trying to massage the margins a little bit, but and those are the pieces you have to play with. So how do you try to play with those pieces to help you out? I mean, I don't know. What do you think about those ideas? Am I getting fired tomorrow?
No. I think I'm with you on Ben Gregg. I think that's a move that you try it, and this is probably the week to try it after what happened last week. I'm fine with that move. I think it maybe even actually sets up the first round of substitutions better. That one I'm cool with. The other one I would do if I was sitting in that chair is my first sub or second sub, depending on the media break, the 16 or the 12 minute, I'm getting Nembhard or Nolan, one or the other. When I bring Dusty off the bench or Greg off the bench, I don't care which, they're coming out. One of those two is coming out. And like you said, you can use that TV timeout. You get 2-3 minutes from that. you don't have to sit them for 4 or 5 minutes. You can sit them for 2 minutes and get a longer break just because you have the idle time of the TV timeout, the commercials. So I'm doing that, and then I'm probably doing it flip in the second half. If I didn't get Nemhard the break in the first half, he's getting the one in the second half. I'm making myself do that. So when they come down to the end, they've played 34 minutes in the final 3 minutes.
Even if they played 37 minutes, like it's just that time off. I mean, look, they are gassed.
Yeah.
I mean, and you were there this last weekend, but you could see it on television. I mean, Nemhard looks gassed. So what he brings you, which is his speed up the floor, starts getting negated anyway.
Yeah.
And he's the only guy that they play in the rotation that really pushes it in transition. Everybody else, for the most part, it's just a jog. They don't have that gear in them. They may make a good play and throw the ball up the floor and it leads to transition, but so many of their opportunities in transition, the ball touches Nemhard's hands and then he makes a decision.
Yeah.
I want him to have that burst late in the game. I mean, you could be, now I'm pushing whether or not to get fired tomorrow, but you can take Nemhard out. You've played 3 bigs and just say, Anton, bring it up.
Yeah.
Like we find Anton, just get us in our offense. We're not going to have as much in transition for 90 seconds, but you're always going to have one or the other out there, Nemhard or Watson for sure, but you don't have to play fast the entire 40 minutes. I just think you got to find a way. I think you're tempting fate. I don't know about you. When Watson went down at the end of the game, I thought, oh man, did he hurt himself? Luckily it's just a cramp. But I can tell you, even though you've got these breaks, there's an accumulation over the course of a season when you just put that much strain on a guy. So we're talking the margins, but can you in the next big game they play, St. Mary's, let's call it, or San Francisco, can you get Watson's minutes down to 37?
Yeah. Well, that's my deal. Mandatory break for one of those points.
And to be fair, I mean, that game was tough, right? You're down without Watson, but it feels like in the second half, did you have a moment you could do that? I don't know, but sorry, I don't want to belabor the point, but I just think that would be helpful.
Hey, we're all Zag Nation is all thinking the same things. Trying to figure out how to
I've enjoyed my 5 minutes of being in charge, and now I'll relinquish the seat to somebody more qualified.
Me too. I'm going back to writing. Hey, that's gonna do it for this week's Zags Basketball Insiders Podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll have this posted here in an hour or two. Come visit us every Monday. That's when we do this show. So we appreciate you listening. We'll see you next week.